You are watching us live here at Humanist TV Africa. You are watching us live here at Humanist TV Africa. It is a non-government organization that deliberately promotes information that rarely is promoted on most of the social media platforms you see. So we are not sensational, we are more of an educational, empowering, and a human rights platform that promotes information that is very important, but much of the time is ignored by many other social media platforms. So this is Human Civic Africa, a non-government organization just to do exactly that. And my name is Katum Mukasa. In the studio is my colleague Dennis Bongole to do the production. And of course, Saturdays, we dedicate this time to consumer activism, human rights activism, consumer rights activism. And of course, this month, we are dedicating it to food safety awareness. And we always have experts in the studio. And of course, today we continue to have my colleague, Mr. Kimera, right there in the studio. And of course, we shall be having Mr. Bernard. Mr. Kimera, you are most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Kato, and it is a great honor always to be with you. And first, I need to apologize to colleagues that last Saturday we didn't fulfill because it is becoming a norm, a culture to be with you every Saturday, and all our viewers, followers, our apologies. But all that kept us busy was all about food safety. My college was in Western Uganda in Kasese, Fort Portal, rolling out food safety issues because that we had our first food safety week in Fort Portal, Kabarore, and Kasese. Then I was also in Arusha, meeting different leaders and the Global Alliance, and we were looking at cultivating change with regards to the agri-food systems transformation. So it was all about food, and we are honored to be back. And I think, Kato, when 30th of June, we will need to pop a healthy champagne for having clocked 6 months of sustained consumer awareness, where that we are making sure that consumers get to know their responsibilities and also get to know their rights and then be in position. Colleagues, like we said earlier, this month is Food Safety Awareness Month, because in this month we observed the World Food Safety Day, which was 7th June, last Friday. And this year's theme is all about prepare for the unexpected. So like we were preparing and doing sensitization on the unexpected, unexpectedly, we were unable to be with you last Saturday, which was 8th. But today we are going to catch up. And today's theme is preparing for the unexpected with regard to the case of the non-communicable diseases. So colleagues, wherever you are, this is a great opportunity for us to share, improve our livelihoods, and making sure that we benefit from the little resources that we have. So that is a kind of a little curtain riser, but you recall that anything that we look at, food safety is everybody's business, but the more business is with the duty bearers, even with us as consumers and food businesses. Aspects to do with the food safety are important to us, and we should observe them. So with that brief, consumers, wherever you are, in Africa, in Europe, Asia, in Australia, in South America, in North America, or in the global world, you're all welcome. And sit-in. Today, we are going to focus on the unexpected by focusing on the uncommunicable diseases. And all these come in with due to unsafe foods or unsafe practices that we engage in as consumers. So as responsible consumers, let's sit in, listen, and we start rolling. So Bernard, you're most welcome, and you can do the curtain riser on your side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera, for that very elaborative introduction. Of course, we knew that you were in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen are always very actively busy in the field, doing consumer activism, and they have been doing it for the last almost 3 decades, as far as Mr. Kimera is concerned. And I know, even when Mr. Bembalezea looks a bit youthful, he has been at it for almost 2 decades. So we are grateful that we have you guys here with us in the studio, and you are always willing to add a brick to the development of our people's empowerment. Empowerment is a process. So, Mr. Bambal,
yes, please.
I would like you to take us through a recap of what we covered and then give us highlights to what we are going to cover in today's show.
All right. So thank you, Kato, for hosting us and Bongol in the studio. We are very honored to be here once again. Mr. Chimera, thank you so much for giving us the briefs as usual. I am very happy that today we are going to add a break to what we've been discussing. Of course, in the previous months, we've really shared a lot of information when it comes to food safety. We've tried to create awareness on what is food safety, where are we at in terms of food safety, what are other components of food safety. We've looked at aflatoxins at some point. We've looked at the role of leadership in food safety. We've looked at food safety and nutrition. I think that is the last session we had, discussing aspects of how food safety actually hinders growth and development of young children and its relationship with stunted growth, with malnutrition. We're able to also look at how food safety really is a very key factor when it comes to all forms of malnutrition, both overnutrition and undernutrition, and how our children get stunted because they've eaten wrong food and all that. So we're able to really go into the details of each of those. And now today we wanted to look at now the trending is that in all our countries, both in Africa and in Europe, we have challenges with non-communicable diseases. So I wanted now to look at, well, how are non-communicable diseases connected with food safety? But before we go into the science of how food safety is linked to non-communicable diseases, we want to reflect on the theme for the World Food Safety Day, which we commemorated on the 7th of June, which looks at food safety, preparing for the unexpected. How do we prepare for the unexpected in terms of food safety? Maybe the question would then be, what are the unexpected? Quite a number of interesting things that we can relate with. What are we talking about when we say prepare for the unexpected in terms of food safety? What is it that we are referring to? Even when we try to be as smart as we can and want to prevent or control food safety, there are certain things that can bypass us. And at the end of the day, we find ourselves into the unexpected, something that you did not expect. I want to give quick examples before I can dive into the other science. Just imagine you have your milk and then you have a refrigerator. And then you get your milk, put it in the fridge, and then you think, well, your fridge is on, and so you'll sustain it for over 1 day or 2 or 3, depending. And then all of a sudden in Africa, as you're aware, power disappears. You have the milk, you've put in a refrigerator, you want to keep it safe, but then the electricity goes off. And you know, in our setting, for example, in Uganda, electricity can move, it can disappear for a whole 1 day or 2. So if you have a perishable food that you've kept and you want to prevent it from any contaminants and power disappears, it would mean that whatever you've put in the fridge is likely to go bad, even when you have a fridge. So that is something unexpected, that you didn't expect electricity to go off, but has gone off. So how are you ready to manage that contaminant from entering your food is what we are talking about. How are countries, how are households prepared to handle a food safety challenge that will come out unexpectedly. Let us look at our country, Uganda. Let us use it as an example. You see, Kasa, you know that in this country we have some juices. One of them is called the one made from the pineapples, commonly known as munanas. So you realize that in our country, when people are making munanas, you get the peelings of the pineapple and you cook them or you boil them, and so you get out the juice. Now imagine a gentleman has been selling pineapples on the road. They have these wheelbarrows where they are pushing their pineapples, and so when they get a customer, they just peel a pineapple and they give you. All those husks, all those the peelings remain with them on that wheelbarrow all the day through. So the whole day, someone has been pushing a wheelbarrow with pineapples, but also the peelings. Now, later in the evening, they get those peelings and now they boil them to make juice for people to take. There is a risk that those peelings could have had already contamination during the course of transportation, aware that they even don't wash them, by the way, when they are making that juice. Now, when they reach the time of packing, there is another young girl or a group of girls who are collecting empty bottles from the streets. And so they are the same bottles that they are selling to this gentleman who's packing for us the juice. Now, we are not sure whether the bottles were washed and how they were washed, but a colleague has put their juice and is selling it on the street the next morning, and someone is consuming it. Now, from the raw material used to make the juice, plus the packaging material that is used to pack the juice, there is a wrong system there that actually is creating a risk to contamination of that juice. Now, for you, the one who's buying the juice, how ready are you to respond to any food safety challenges that could have come along with the juice? Looking at the bottle, where it came from. And in Uganda, it has even been a trend that what happens when it is raining on a rainy day, you see very young men and women getting mosquito nets. And so they trap these bottles from the flowing water, from that flowing rainwater. So they just trap it in sewage plants, and you see bottles collecting in that, and then they ferry them. We are not sure of how they are washed. We are not sure. We can't be sure of the safety issues. In Uganda also, we have seen another challenging situation where during jam, we have heavy jam, women and girls and boys and men. Yes. So
traffic jam.
Yes, traffic jam. Yes.
Yeah.
So you find that people are urinating in empty bottles of water while in jam. So someone is urinating in a bottle and all this. Now, at the end of the day, they reach somewhere and they discard them. Now, the young person who's picking these bottles to go and use for whatever purpose, they will just get the bottle with urine and pour it off, and they go and process. They put juice. How are we ready to handle such unexpected? Now, for you buying the juice in that packaging material, you are not aware of where the bottle was picked from. You're not aware of which kind of juice, how it was treated. You're not aware. So how are we ready to handle some of these circumstances? The other time when we went to Kasese last week, we were talking about people who are using formalin, a chemical that is used for preserving human bodies that have died, the dead bodies. And then someone picks the same chemical and then they put it in milk or they put it in food. Now, already it becomes a chemical contaminant. And one of the community members told us that we have been doing it every day because I have 2,000 liters of milk. And I have, my refrigerator or a cooler where I put this milk. And then all of a sudden, you realize that electricity goes off, but I have 2,000 liters of milk. You guys, be serious. Do I pour this milk away? So we are doing this because governments are not providing us electricity full time to run such a business. So we end up being forced to look for an alternative that we can actually use to put formalin in there and ensure that our milk is safe. I cannot lose all this money. So we're calling upon governments. Because that is unexpected. You don't expect that someone will put actually a chemical for dead bodies in human food. But also he tells you that I'm putting it there because I have no alternative for electricity. It has gone off. On the same, I was asking the same women in the market, in one of the markets in the West, I said, please, why are you putting a chemical on a tomato? Because I mean, this is a chemical, someone is going to take it and they're going to get sick. And the woman told me, no, look here, I have bought tomatoes worth 2 million Uganda shillings. But I'm sure that the consumers are not going to consume all of them today. But I am in a market where, in the first place, there is a room that was put there purposely as a cold room, where I'm supposed to put my tomatoes in situations where they are excess. I have to keep them there. But the truth of the matter is, the room, which is called cold room, doesn't have infrastructure for me to put the tomatoes. And I cannot lose my 2 million shillings. Besides, it was a loan. I picked it as a loan. So I have no choice to put a chemical so that it keeps longer until the consumer comes to pick it. Now, you see, that is the dilemma. Now, the question is, how are we ready to actually, how prepared are we to handle such circumstances as governments? Why would the government construct a market, spend a lot of millions of dollars, and then you don't fulfill what you're supposed to have on a market? So at the end of the day, we learned that people are pushed to do these things because we have not put in place what they're supposed to use. So as governments, how ready are we to support our people to actually minimize contamination of food? Because you see, if a government does not provide such services, people are going to consume that chemical, they get sick of cancer. When they get sick of cancer, government has to spend money to treat that person until they die. Unfortunately, until they die. Now, when the person dies, government loses money. First of all, you have treated what is not curing, and so you've lost money on liability because someone is already dying. But also, that person who was probably productive and earning and providing incomes to the country through revenue, but the person has died. So how ready are governments in prevention and control mechanisms of food safety? Because whereas government is failing to provide, the people are looking for alternatives to save themselves from making losses, but at the expense of killing the consumer who has also been providing the money to the economy. So when we are talking about the unexpected, we need to think even without the box, something that is coming abruptly and is a food safety concern. Now, you will not imagine that 1 out of 10 people who are in the hospital now are actually sick, but they are sick because of a foodborne illness. Which foodborne illness they got without them knowing. But because they consumed food that was contaminated. Now, surprisingly also, maybe I should use the case for Uganda. 33% of the Ugandans who are hospitalized are sick of non-communicable diseases. So you can imagine if you have 100 people, leave alone those who are pregnant, who are in the hospital delivering, who had complications of what, who had accidents, but 33 over 100 are there because they have a non-communicable disease. Unfortunately, 22% of Ugandans are candidates to non-communicable diseases. Now, this is where the worry is. So today now we want to relate, now that there is unexpected, now that there is food safety concerns, how is food safety related to non-communicable diseases? Now, that's where I want to explain slowly for our people to understand. Of course, I know we cannot exhaust all the non-communicable diseases, but I'll try as much as possible to bring out the common ones, and maybe we can build on later on. Maybe to begin with, people would love to understand what are non-communicable diseases. You know, usually we speak about non-communicable diseases, but somehow we even don't know what they are.
I was about to ask you that because I knew that some of my viewers would like to understand exactly what are these non-communicable diseases. Okay. Please go ahead.
Good. So I want to quickly say that Non-communicable diseases are those that you cannot transmit from one person to another. That is the first starting point. If you have it, it is yours. So if Bernard has a non-communicable disease, he will not give it to Mr. Chimera. Even if I give you a handshake, or I give you a hug, or I stay with you in the same house or in the same bed, I cannot give it to you. It is non-communicable. It cannot go from one person to another. That is the first bit of it. The second bit of it is that these non-communicable diseases take long to manifest. Now, in science, we say that they have a long lattice period, meaning that they take a long time to manifest. So you can have this disease, you have it, it starts growing slowly, and you come to realize that you have it 10 years down the road. So they don't just like you have it and then you start feeling it now. No, they will come slowly, they start building up and building up. So 10, 15 or so years, it really manifests. And that's why most of those non-communicable diseases are actually diagnosed when people are almost at their death point. So those non-communicables, those are the ones we call non-communicable diseases. It comes, takes its time slowly as it develops, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years. And then by the time now you realize that you're actually very sick, you're indeed very sick and you're not repairable. So we cannot do much with you because you've lived with your disease over the years and now it has reached a stage where it has eaten up everything and we have nothing to do with you. The only thing is to pray for you and you die well. Now, those are the non-communicable diseases. Now, these non-communicable diseases are related. Some of them, the moment one of them comes, it will call its sister. So it's like they have a clique that when one comes, it will definitely go and pick its friends. And that's why many people at the point of death, when someone is dying of a non-communicable disease, they have more than one non-communicable diseases because one invites another by default. Let us give some bit of examples that are common. We have a disease called hypertension. I don't want to call it high blood pressure because many people you mix up words. High blood pressure is a little bit different from hypertension. Hypertension comes after you've had several episodes of high blood pressure. So you can go to the hospital and they say you have a high blood pressure, but we can only make a diagnosis of high blood pressure for it to go into hypertension on 3 occasions. So every time they take your blood pressure is higher. So when that happens over a period of about 3 episodes, then we can take you from high blood pressure and probably you become hypertensive. So some people have high blood pressure, but it's for one day. That one is not a disease. For example, when you've been jogging, you realize that after jogging, if I got a pressure machine and I measured your pressure values, they will be higher because you're panting. And so if that happens, even without running or you're not depressed or whatever, and then I do it over 3 consecutive times and I realize it's higher than normal, then you can say you are hypertensive. So hypertension is one of those non-communicable diseases that are actually common in our setting. The other non-communicable disease is diabetes. Diabetes is another non-communicable disease. It comes slowly. By the time someone is diabetic and you start recognizing that you're actually having diabetes, first of all, our people don't know the signs and symptoms of these diseases. So they come, you feel some bit of, you go to urinate, okay, you say maybe I drank a lot of water. You start feeling hungry, you start feeling thirsty, but you're not bothered to go to the hospital and check out what is happening. So by the time you realize that now diabetes has started eating up the lungs, the kidneys, and whatever, it's already too late for you. And that is why in science, we say that please, every 3 months, come to the hospital, check yourself, have a comprehensive checkup so that you know how you're standing. Otherwise, you can be surprised. You go to the hospital and they tell you, oh my God, it is too late. You already have, hypertension in emergency. You're already having diabetes and the diabetes is too much that we cannot control now. So these are common examples. The third example is cancer. Now, You can have cancer for 10 years and you realize at the 10th year that you have cancer. And at the end of the day, you die because we have nothing to do with it at the stage at which it is. Unfortunately, cancer can spread from one body part to another. You can have cancer of the lungs, but it spreads to the liver, it spreads to the kidney, it spreads to the brain. Now, I wanted to put a lot of emphasis around cancer. Now, I want to make now the relationships. Of course, there are other diseases, arthritis, there is gout, many non-communicable diseases. And surprisingly, the WHO, the World Health Organization, has confirmed that we have more than 200 diseases that are foodborne. Unfortunately, out of all those 200 diseases that are foodborne, majority of them are because of food safety and they are non-communicable diseases. So if you look at the 1 in 10 people worldwide who are suffering from diseases because of eating contaminated food, now most of them have more than 200 diseases that are actually associated with eating food, which either had a virus or it had a chemical or it had a bacteria or it had heavy metals, etc. And most of the unfortunate bit of this truth is that children, pregnant women, lactating mothers, and elderly, plus those ones who have chronic illnesses, are at increased risk. However, children under the age of 5 make up the highest percentage of people who are suffering from these 200 diseases we are talking about. Now, I want to categorically go through a relationship between these non-communicable diseases and food safety. To begin with, I want to put emphasis, even if we end this session, but when everyone has understood the relationship between cancer, which is a non-communicable disease, and food safety. I want to quickly go there, understanding of this. Yeah. So I am just going to pick a case of cancer as a non-communicable disease and make a scientific relationship with food safety. Now, maybe to begin with, what is cancer? How does cancer come? Where does it start from? Where does it end? Ladies and gentlemen, cancer is very difficult to treat and is one of the most expensive diseases to treat. Unfortunately, we spend a lot of money on it and the patient never cures, they die. Unless we identify this cancer in stage 1, where we can still manage the cell formation and then we deal with it. But the moment it started growing, phase 2, 3, and 4, we may not do much. Even when we bring the best technology, the best scientists, we may not do much. And therefore, we need, as much as we can, prevent ourselves from having this tragedy. Now, cancer, all our body cells or our body organs are made up of what we call cells, the body cells. Even if it is blood, it is made of blood cells. Even if
yeah, we are losing you, Bernard. We are losing you, the network right there, but you had really progressed very well. And I do. Please continue if you can hear me, Bernard.
Okay, sorry. The network a little bit jammed. So I was trying to look at cancer, what cancer is. So what happens is that now all our body systems, our organs, everything on us is made of a particular cell or particular cells. These are millions of cells. So cells are like the bricks that make up a house. So you're like making a house of your body, but you're using body cells. So those are the smallest units that make up your body. Now, these cells are designed in such a way that they are supposed to die at a particular time, but at the time of its death, there is a new cell that is coming up. It is an instant process in our bodies, and that is the design of the creator. So body cells are made in such a way that it has to come at a particular time, but it has a time frame. When that time frame comes, the cell dies and a new cell comes up. So that is the physiology of a human person. Now, what happens is that I want to give maybe some bit of examples. We have heard of red blood cells. Red blood cells are cells that help us to form blood inside us. We have white blood cells. These are the ones that form now the face of the body. But a red blood cell will come and will survive for 120 days. After 120 days, that cell will die and a new cell comes. So it is automatic. So the body system is arranged in such a way that when a cell comes, it starts counting. So as it dies on 120th day, a new cell has already come. And that is why your photograph of now is not the same as that of 5 years ago. Why? Because the cells have been dying and new ones come to match with your age, to match with where you are staying, to match with the environment in which you live. So that is the physiology of the body. Now, time comes when a cell is supposed to die and refuses to die. A new cell is supposed to form and fails to form. Or the old cell is supposed to die, it refuses to die, and a new cell has come to replace it. Now they go into confusion. Who is supposed to survive and who is supposed to go off? So you have two existing cells. You have a cell which is supposed to be there, and you have a cell which was supposed to have died but has refused to die. Now, the body goes into that confusion of these cells which are coexisting and yet they're not supposed to coexist. Unfortunately, the cell which was supposed to die, it becomes more competitive than the new cell. And so they start competing for nutrients, they start competing for water, they start competing for oxygen, they start competing for blood. Now, you hear now in that kind of circus that is happening within your body system, tumors start forming. Now, those tumors are those cells which are in confusion. They start forming, and so they form tumors, which are more or less like blisters. Now, that cell can form anywhere. If the system is failing in the lungs, then the tumor forms in the lungs. If the system is not working well in the brain, then the tumor forms in the brain. If that is happening in the heart, then the tumor comes in the heart or any other body organ where the confusion is happening. When that happens, you have what we call now the cancer cells forming. These are very disastrous cells that now they grow very fast because they are out-competing other cells. They grow very fast, they move very fast, they are very competitive, and they are very stubborn. Now, these start relocating themselves to the different body organs. If at all they have reached that level of maturity, they can divide and move wherever they want. So they can move from the lungs, they go to the liver. They leave the liver, they go to the kidney. Of course, they don't leave. What they do, they make copies. So they reproduce and make their copies. So other copies run to the lungs, others run to the head, others run to the liver, etc. Now, that is the reason why when someone has cancer and has advanced, and we take them to India, they go and work on a cancer cell in the lungs, and the person comes back to Uganda, and we are clapping, the person has cured. 3 weeks down the road, the person has another episode. Now this time it is in the liver or in the kidneys. We rush them to the hospital. They realize there is a cell in the kidney that is not supposed to be there, meaning that metastasis or the movement of cancer cells had already started at the time you started treating yourself. Now, the question I also want to answer here is, so why are the cells failing now to agree? Why are these cells which are supposed to die failing to die? Why are those new cells which are supposed to form failing to form? Why are cells now competing? Why this caveat in the body? Why is the body distorted now that the cells are no longer connecting with each other? One of the risk factors is to do with food. The safety of the food that you have consumed can lead to what I have just explained. For example, assuming somebody is taking food, but the food is having tar. Now, tar is the chemical compound that we are using to make tarmac, the tarmac that they are putting on our roads. Now, when you see the guys who are making those roads, who are constructing roads, they get chemical compounds full of tar and they put it on heat, like they kind of preheat it. So in the process of preheating the tar, other chemical compounds are formed. So for example, you will have something like hydrocarbons, which are formed because of incomplete burning of the tar. Now, those aromatic hydrocarbons, whenever they enter our bodies, they form a risk of distorting the cells in our bodies. So those hydrocarbons become carcinogenic. In other words, they are called carcinogens. In other words, they can lead to the distortion of the arrangement of the cells in the body. And at the end of the day, the cells now fail to coordinate the way they were coordinating. And so it can lead to cancer. Now, why am I talking about those hydrocarbons? Because you find human beings whom you would think have an understanding and they have some brain, putting food for human beings on top of tarmac roads, which tarmac roads are made of tar, which tar was first of all boiled, preheated to form those hydrocarbons so that it can be sticky on the road surface. And so you dry food there. The moment you dry food on tarmac and it starts melting on heat when the sun is hot, the hydrocarbons start entering the human food. And so when a human being consumes those hydrocarbons, they end up going into the human body, and so they distort the process of formation and the nature of the cells in our bodies. And at the end of the day, they start forming those tumors, like I explained earlier, and you end up having cancer. This may not come on day 1, 2, 3, or even after a year. Remember, this is a non-communicable disease. So it will accumulatively cause this kind of havoc in the body system. And at the end of the day, 5 years, 10 years down the road, all the cells cannot defend themselves. And now they are forming those benign, or rather malignant cells, which we can call the cancerous cells. So this is why I've been calling upon people, please don't dry food on top of tarmac, because it will melt and goes in human food, and a person consumes that food with the hydrocarbons, which are actually aromatic, and they can cause challenges with the cells. That is one. If you look at formalin, which I've always talked about, it's called a formaldehyde. You know, this is a chemical that we've been using in treating human bodies that have died to preserve them. The moment you have excessive consumption of formaldehyde, which is the formalin we are talking about now this time, it can go and, affect the cell system. So the communication of the cells that, okay, you have to die tomorrow, I will come tomorrow, you have to form today, and yet it can distort that process in our bodies. And once that system is distorted, body cells go into a mix of things. And at the end of the day, cells are not coordinating and communicating the way they are supposed to communicate, because there's a lot of chemical compounds which are not supposed to be in the body, but they are there. And so the body is struggling with them, and they confuse the whole body system. And at the end of the day, new cells are not formed, or other cells are formed where they're not supposed to come. And so there's a distortion of the whole cellulology inside there. And then at the end of the day, people have these tumors, and at the end of the day, cancers come in. So if someone is using formalin today, tomorrow, next year, the other year, 10 years down the road, everybody consuming this milk high in this may have a challenge. Everyone eating a lot of food having tar, which has been dried on tarmac, we have a risk of that. Now you can imagine that is a food safety issue, that you're contaminating food with your tar, but at the end of the day, you're causing disease. That you're contaminating milk in the name of preserving the milk with formalin, but that formalin is causing trouble to the human cells, which actually is going to end up into a cancer. What about the chemicals that we use as preservatives for food when they're actually not supposed to be? You find tomatoes with mancozeb. You find tomatoes, people are using every wrong thing to make sure they preserve tomatoes and other vegetables. Those chemicals, when they accumulate in our human bodies, they cause a lot of trouble to the formation of cells. And because of that, the cells go into that fighting that I first explained up there, and we end up having cancer on a rise. Someone would wonder, how come that in a few years ago, this is a very good, thank you for projecting that. It is the same story with transformer oil. This is meant for machines, this is meant for machines, for heaven's sake. These are lubricants. Now you get a lubricant and you keep giving it to humans in food. And at the end of the day, the lubricant is associated with cancer, it is associated with heart disease, it is associated with all of those challenges. they come from the food. Now, transformer oil has been found in Kampala food. I started finding this oil when I was in university at my undergrad. And every time I reported this, people thought I was causing, alarms. Until now, because I was an individual and I was still a youngster doing simple researches here and there. Now, this time, a whole university, Makerere University, comes up with a paper after we had presented a case that there's a lot of transformer oil being sold in our chips, in our chicken on the road and this TC, and people are thinking we are inciting violence, until Makerere University comes up now after this long advocacy, and they're like, you know what, let us do a study in scientific, and revealed what you've just seen on the paper there. So transformer oil, having food on tarmac, having formalin, having chemicals spread on food, they are all risks to the challenge I've just explained. And maybe to add more context, every time we eat food and the food has aflatoxins, which we took a whole math explaining, this is fungus, and people are eating aflatoxins every now and then in large amounts. Still, those aflatoxins distort the cellulology, the cell formation, the cells in the body, and at the end of the day, tumors. And that's why we related aflatoxins to liver cancer, because the aflatoxins are regulated inside the body in the liver. But time comes when the liver cannot do any more thing on the aflatoxins the moment they are so much there, when they accumulate there. And at the end of the day, people suffer from either liver failure, which is also a non-communicable disease, or they suffer from liver cancer. And when that liver cancer comes in, it is by default. The moment the liver starts getting challenges, all other organs start getting challenges, because the liver is no longer regulating fat, no longer regulating sugar, no longer regulating salt, no longer regulating chemicals. Now all body organs, all the systems go into failure. And that's why you hear someone has gotten what they call multi-organ failure, just because they ate a chemical compound in food, which we should have prevented.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bernard.
Okay,
that was
please.
a good one. I should be pausing here a little bit there, and we continue with the observation and, of course, interpreting what you have said. You have given us a very good lesson right there in science. We are following. There is a colleague, Peter Clever Bidimuye, sent in questions. He was really appreciating you. But some of the questions he sent, he was asking if it was advisable to use table salt, and what someone can do if they are addicted to fried food and all that. So you see, people are asking questions because they are following and they want to get answers from the experts, because all of us are concerned. These are matters of health, and many of us actually are struggling with these health issues. So those are the questions from Mr. Bidimuye right there, and would like to get your counsel, your guidance on this. Then we shall be able to have Mr. Kimera come in a minute. Bernard, substantiate on those issues.
Thank you. So maybe Clever, thank you so much for the question. Table salt. Now, table salt is supposed to be consumed, and we have a range. We have the amount we are supposed to consume. The challenge is that now in Uganda, 99% of the Ugandans consume more salt than they're supposed to consume. Now, salt is associated with hypertension. So consumption of raw salt and even cooked salt, but when it is too much, if it is more than about less than 20 grams, but you'll find that a day someone is eating more than 5 or 10 spoons of salt. You put salt in rice, you put salt in meat, you put salt on a mango, raw mangoes, you put salt everywhere. So it is associated with hypertension because salt attracts water molecules from the neighboring cells. So the moment your body has too much salt, it becomes concentrated with salt and it starts attracting water molecules from the neighboring cells, and so it increases blood volume. When it increases blood volume, you have limited space where that blood will be passing. So it's not advisable to have excessive consumption of salt, and it is even not advisable at all to actually consume raw salt. Some of you who put salt on eggs and on raw mangoes, on what? Women are leaking salt. It is not advisable scientifically. Yeah,
that's a good one. Thank you so much, Bernard. That was really an education to all of us, and especially to take care of ourselves, because as Mr. Kimera says, if it's not safe, it is not food. So, Mr. Kimera, you are welcome now to add your knowledge to where Bernard has stopped.
I felt like not coming in, but let me just come in and also create. Bernard would make a rejoinder as we close. Bernard, thank you very much. That has been very rich. And Kato, I would like to tell the consumers that the person who stopped learning is that person who stopped breathing. That is very key. When you stop breathing, that is when you stop to learn. So today, there are many insights. And Bernard, thank you for bringing in those key insights that have made us awake, giving us a new lease of life. Why am I calling it a new lease of life? It is that now we, as consumers, we get empowered. We get the opportunity to also pass on the knowledge. Like I always say, I would like to repeat that consumers, we are the biggest number or the biggest socioeconomic group who are agents of change. So through such a program, we can do a lot of change when we get to know and get awareness. The awareness that you have received today, you can use it in many things. Do use it to bring about socioeconomic change or social change, health-wise, socially, in your family, communities, and everywhere. The information you have got today as a consumer, you can bring about good governance, a political understanding of issues that are affecting us, the consumers, if there are no instruments, if there are no safeguards to protect us, by getting the duty bearers to understand. More to that, using this information today, we need to advocate for legal and regulatory frameworks to safeguard us, advocate for more investment in consumer protection measures or food safety measures, looking at other aspects, how technology can be used to address such aspects that are affecting us. Technology is good, and if at times it is used wrongly, it is also can bring adverse effects on us. Picking up from what Bernard has told us and shared right from the ground with the food businesses, that there is an importance, or it is very important, that we start looking for alternatives in, now that we have excessively, let's say, used chemicals in doing many food production, food processing, or even food preservation. What are those alternatives that can bring back or even regenerate the environment, the soils, regenerate even our lives? So these are key aspects that I wish to bring in, not as a scientist, but as an ordinary consumer, reflecting on all the volume of information Bernard has shared with us. How best do we reflect from it? Socially, politically? How do we look at advocacy, bringing in policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks by telling our governments to play their major roles, by telling the business communities that the food you are giving us is endangering us due to non-good agricultural practices, non-good handling practices, using aspects or ingredients that are not supposed to enter the food chain. Looking at aspects, how do we use the technology? How do we use the alternatives that will benefit us? So, colleagues, I would wish to end up and give Bernard another opportunity, get to know as consumers. We are very powerful, but once we get to know with this awareness, we can be very good change agents. As good change agents, we'll need to realize that there is a lot of advancements in food production. There is a lot of advancements in innovations, innovations that are positive and negative. So the unscrupulous come in with the different innovations, and this is where I would like to continuously appeal to consumers wherever we are to speak up and loud. Lastly, we would need to understand that you can have pleasure on the plate, but have safety in the mind. Always think, is what I'm consuming safe? What is the unexpected that can come out of it? So whatever is on the plate, think about it positively. It might give me good health, but it might cause the unexpected. So food safety does not only stop with the plate. Food safety touches the entire food system. How the environment in which food was grown is treated, how the economy, the environment in which food was processed is treated, and then our health. So let's look at food safety, not only with the food on the plate, but let's look, where did it come from? How did it come to my plate, and how have I handled it before it comes onto my plate? So all this flow of the food leads us to the case of the non-communicable diseases Bernard is talking about to us today. So consumers, we are the largest socioeconomic grouping, but we have a responsibility to play in regards to food safety and the vagaries that we get that lead to non-communicable diseases, that lead to the over 200 foodborne diseases that come in due to different processes. So we have a role to play, and as we advocate for businesses to bring safe food, as we advocate for government to take its important role, as consumers, we need now to start speaking up and speaking out, and loud and clear, and let's share this information with others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kimera, for that follow-up. I want to really say thank you to the viewers. Jeannie, NTS series, as a consumer, how can I support and advocate for stronger food safety measures in my community? There's a question there for you. Bernard, you're going to be answering that. Of course, Jenny Kruger, thanks so much from watching from South Africa, sent a message there. There have been others sending messages. I may not be able to exhaust all the messages, but please continue watching and, of course, continue sharing. These are very informative shows that will help us live longer. We live longer because we do the right things. Now, Bernard,
yes, please.
may you please answer some of these concerns from the viewers? Mr. Kimera has been able to get us more insight and want to wrap it up. What can we do as consumers to avoid the mistakes we have been doing for some time? Someone was saying someone is addicted to fried food. How do I avoid that? I should tell you something before you come in, that I used to like sugar, this normal sugar all over steak. And it took me so much convincing to leave it. But last year in March, I made a decision to say I have to end taking sugar. And I tried to take honey. If I can't have honey, then I better leave. But I should tell you, it was one of the hardest decisions to do. So I know that these are decisions we struggle with because we were addicted. So someone was asking, someone is interested in eating fried food, fast foods. How can I run away from them? There's some question comes up here from Jenny. Jenny says, how do food safety regulations in Uganda protect me from NCDs, non-communicable diseases? So over to you, Bernard. You wrap up, but also try to give us insights how to be much safer and avoid getting these non-communicable diseases. Bernard, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mukasa, Henry, and the colleagues who are watching. Well, I want to respond to all these questions as I close, as I give the closing session. But I just wanted to quickly give you one other insight. Clever was asking about salt. Please, salt, we give it according to the daily allowances. So for adults, all of us who are adults, we should take less than 5 grams of salt per day. That one I needed to give it to him so that he knows it. So for sugar, I will talk about it another day. It is also another whole subject that I will still relate. But I wanted to maybe have one conclusive kind of say on diabetes and food safety. Someone was telling me that, no, but I think diabetes cannot be related to food safety. Now, one thing that we need to know is that diabetes is a disease that comes because, one, either your pancreas is releasing insulin, which is a hormone that regulates sugar. Every after you've eaten, insulin comes to pick that sugar and take it to the cells. Now, time comes when insulin comes, but is resisted from picking the sugar and taking it where it is supposed to be. Because that process has failed, the sugar accumulates in your bloodstream, and so you have now too much blood sugar, and that is what we call now diabetes. Now, how is it related to food safety? Chemical compounds, studies have been done, and they are showing that chemical compounds, like I talked earlier, they can actually cause resistance of insulin from attaching to the sugar. So the moment your body has too much of these chemicals, pesticides, it has this tar, it has these formaldehydes and whatever, they can actually cause a hindrance or a resistance for insulin to attach itself to the sugar and take it away from the bloodstream. So it remains there. So there's a big relationship there, please, between food safety and insulin resistance. We need to be careful on the food we are eating. So someone was asking, how are the laws or regulations in Uganda? How are they protecting us from non-communicable diseases? As a matter of fact, Uganda has quite a number of interesting laws. We even have acts of parliament, whatever, on food safety. And I think we need to make our countries responsible, but also we make them accountable for not enforcing these laws. For example, we have a meat protection regulation protecting meat. We have a regulation on the Dairy Development Authority has those instruments for milk. They are there, how milk is supposed to be preserved, how it is supposed to be sold, how it is supposed to be, the regulations are there. All of this is supposed to protect the consumer from, adulterated milk or products. We even have the counterfeit regulations. We have the UNBS Act. We have a lot of food safety regulations. We have standards. We have all this. The challenge is they are not being enforced. And so our country has to be held accountable. And if we are to file a case, we can actually win it because the country has let the citizens go off track. So I think the first thing is join us in the campaign against unsafe food. I'm trying also to respond to the question of how can I support my community to run away from, unsafe food. Join us. We are still a smaller team that are actually talking about food safety. So we are trying to say, okay, how many of you guys can join us on this campaign? And we make sure that, first of all, every consumer, wherever they are, they hear about this message, they comprehend it, they understand it, and they live by it. The moment you start living by this message, I'm telling you the truth, you cannot have challenges of this nature. Now that you have heard about it from us, comprehend it, understand it, and spread it to your neighbors, spread it to your community. We want everyone to hear this message, understand food safety, and we run away from unsafe food. The moment I'm on the street, let me be cognizant of which kind of food I'm going to purchase. Me, the consumer. But I must have been aware of those dynamics in food. So for us, we are already available. We have committed ourselves with Henry and our team. Wherever we are called, we shall come there. We shall come and teach your people. If you cannot do it, please let us know. Contact us. We shall come running. We sensitize your people and we improve this situation. So be the ambassador of food safety to prevent people from death, untimely death, people from disease, people from suffering, people from poverty. All those things are brought about by food. Thank you so much.
Bernard, time is not our best ally, but I was enjoying every bit of this show today, and I do believe that our viewers are enjoying it. I want to encourage our viewers, please share, comment, like, let the message go as far as it can go, because someone is going to be empowered out of sickness. Jenny says, thank you. Jenny is saying, thank you, Bernard. We need more engagements like this. Mr. Kimera, give us your parting shot, but also a peep into next week's show. Over to you, Mr. Kimera.
Thank you very much. I'm going to use the analogy of wildfire, but let's call it the wildfire that is friendly, that doesn't damage the environment, but the fire of knowledge, the fire that is empowering consumers. And it is very nice our colleagues are joining in. Jenny, those were good views. And I would tell the consumers globally that continue listening to these episodes. Time is against us, but we'll be around next Saturday. And still, we are going to expound more on issues to do with food safety, preparing for the unexpected. Well, other people have got insurance cover, but there are times even when insurance cover cannot cover you. So this is where we need to have governments that prepare for the unexpected, the emergencies, to safeguard the citizens. Business community, the food businesses, all the suppliers to food businesses, we have a role to play to make sure that the food consumers receive is safe. The consumers are the foundation of any business. If the business doesn't produce good food, good products, consumers will lose confidence. Then lastly, as the consumers, I wish to repeat, food is our medicine. Food is our health care. We need to campaign and advocate for responsible production, responsible consumption, and then lastly, consumers, when food is not safe, it is not food, it is poison. You've heard about food poison? Food can be food poison because of all the contaminants, all the aspects Bernard has shared. So colleagues, let's be with you and link up next Saturday with the same subject matter, but a different angle. Thank you very much, and always a pleasure having you, Kato, and Dennis, and then Bernard, and all of you who are watching us and listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera. Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera, for that insight you have given us today. Bernard, your parting shot, even when we are short of time today, I want you to give us your parting shot for today, and then that will be it. Thank you so much, Bernard, and of course, Mr. Kimera, for the nice show, and our viewers for watching and sharing and commenting. You keep us going because you give us the impetus, you give us the appetite to continue coming here and share with you. Bernard, your parting shot.
Yeah, thank you, colleagues. So I am more than committed to ensure that we reach out to people as much as we can, and that's why I ran away from the hospital setting to stop treating what I know that we can prevent. So I decided that I come and do what I'm doing now, so that you guys live and don't die. People would come to me in the hospital just to come and die, and yet I know where the challenge is. So please, let us work together. Let us have coordinated efforts to make sure we reach out to people. Let us share this information. Let us keep learning, unlearning, and relearning new things so that we save our lives, we save our population, we save our homes, we save our children from premature death. This is called premature death. We need to live as long as we.
Thank you so much, Bernard. The network there is not your best ally, but we've got information from Anana Pokua. Well done, Henry. And of course, Patrick Jaramogi. You're also saying, well done, Henry. People are watching, and I'm very, 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 very energized to hear our feedback from people saying, well done, well done. Bernard, it has been good having you. You have taken us through a school of science. You have taught us how cancers are formed. I do think, and I do believe, that many people benefit from your insights, your scientific research. People learn the best from such shows. That's why Humanist TV Africa, as a registered charity, we want to continue engaging with partners like you, because you help us to grow academically. You give us the information that is going to help us keep living. This is the way to go. It is Humanist TV Africa. In the studio was Dennis Bongole. Please share on our Facebook platforms, wherever you are, and keep on subscribing on our YouTube channel. Keep well, keep safe, keep better, keep hope alive. See you in the next show. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Honor.